Reproductive health is not just about reproduction. It is about overall well-being in the reproductive system, the body, the mind, and society. That is why we begin with the idea of a masterclass, because this chapter is built on concepts, not memorized lines. The focus here is clear. Understand the framework first, then the details become much easier to place.
Start with the definition of reproductive health. WHO's idea is broader than just physical fitness. It includes physical, social, emotional, and behavioral well-being. That full circle view matters because students often remember only the biological part and forget the social side. The slide also introduces two major policy milestones: family planning, started in 1951, and the modern RCH programs. It also warns about amniocentesis. It is legally allowed only for genetic disorders, not for sex determination. That is a common exam trap. The next big idea is population growth. The world and India both show how sharply numbers can rise over time. India's population growth rate had fallen below 2% by the 2011 census, which is an important marker. The triggers shown are equally important: falling death rate, falling maternal mortality rate, falling infant mortality rate, and an increase in the reproducible age group. The fix is social as much as medical. The slogan, "Hum do hamare do," and raising marriage age for females and males. That is the demographic logic behind reproductive health. The slide on the ideal contraceptive gives the standard benchmark. A good contraceptive should be user-friendly, easily available, effective, reversible, and should not interfere with sexual drive or the act itself. From there, contraceptive methods are grouped into natural, barrier, IUDs, oral pills, injectables or implants, and surgical methods. This classification is the base map for the whole chapter, so it is worth holding in one clean structure. Natural methods are the simplest, but they are not the most reliable. Periodic abstinence means avoiding intercourse during the fertile period, which marks as roughly day 10 to day 17. Coitus interruptus is the withdrawal method, where the penis is withdrawn before ejaculation. Lactational amenorrhea depends on the absence of menstruation during intense breastfeeding after childbirth. The trap on the slide is important. Its maximum effective window is generally up to 6 months, not longer. These methods have no devices and no side effects, but the failure rate is high. Barrier methods are much more direct. Condoms, for males and females, are thin latex or rubber barriers that prevent semen from entering the tract. They are disposable, self-inserted, and highlights the popular brand Nirod. This is also the only barrier method that protects against STIs and AIDS, which is the key exam point. On the other side are female-only barriers like diaphragms, cervical caps, and vaults, which are reusable. The middle booster concept matters too. Spermicidal creams, jellies, and foams improve the effectiveness of these barriers.
The IUD matrix is one of the most testable pages. The base mechanism is insertion into the uterus by doctors, which increases phagocytosis of sperms. Non-medicated IUDs include the Lippes loop. Copper-releasing IUDs include CUT, CU7, and multiload 375, and copper ions suppress sperm motility and fertilizing ability. Hormone-releasing IUDs include ProgestaCert and LNG20, which make the uterus unsuitable for implantation and make the cervix hostile to sperms. The slide's warning is critical. Do not confuse LNG20 with multiload 375.
The 21-day pill is the standard oral contraceptive example. It usually contains progestogens alone or combined progestogen-estrogen forms. The usual pattern is daily use for 21 days, starting within the first 5 days of the cycle, followed by a 7-day gap for menstruation. Its action is the classic contraceptive logic. It inhibits ovulation and implantation and alters cervical mucus to slow sperm entry. On the other side is Saheli, the game changer. It was developed by CDRI Lucknow, and it is a non-steroidal contraceptive with very few side effects. The mnemonic on the slide, CD-NO, is worth remembering. Injectables and implants are long-acting hormonal methods. They can contain progestogens alone or with estrogen and are placed under the skin. Their action is similar to pills, but the duration of effectiveness is much longer. Let's move on to emergency contraception, the alarm window method. It must be taken within 72 hours of intercourse. It is meant for situations like unprotected casual intercourse or rape. Valid drugs include progestogens, combined progestogen-estrogen formulations, or even IUDs. That time window is the key feature here. Delay reduces usefulness sharply. Surgical methods are terminal sterilization methods, and they are highly effective but poorly reversible. In vasectomy, a small part of the vas deferens is removed or tied, so sperm transport is blocked, but sperm production continues normally in the testes. In tubectomy, a small part of the fallopian tube is removed or tied. The examiner trap is explicit. Vasectomy blocks transport, not production. That distinction is easy to miss and easy to test. The reversibility chart gives a clean ranking. Natural methods are the most reversible, followed by barrier methods. IUDs, implants, and surgical methods are much less reversible, with surgery being the lowest. On the efficacy side, the order shifts. Surgical methods, implants, and IUDs are the most effective, while natural methods are the least effective. The one line to retain exactly is this: only barrier methods, especially condoms, protect against STIs. It's time to learn about MTP, or medical termination of pregnancy. The context is very large. Millions of MTPs occur worldwide every year, and the slide notes that a major share of conceived pregnancies may end up in this category. India legalized MTP in 1971 with strict conditions to prevent misuse, especially sex-selective practices. The first trimester is the safer window, while second trimester abortions are riskier. Valid reasons include contraceptive failure, rape, unwanted pregnancy, or serious risk to the mother or fetus. The MTP Amendment Act 2017 refined the rules further. Up to 12 weeks, the opinion of one registered medical practitioner is needed. Between 12 and 24 weeks, the opinion of two registered medical practitioners is needed. The grounds include serious risk to the woman's life or physical or mental health, and substantial risk of physical or mental abnormalities in the child. That is the legal framework students must know, especially for NEET style and law-linked biology questions.
The given final timeline is the clean revision. It ties everything together. Periodic abstinence around days 10 to 17, emergency contraception within 72 hours, the end of the first trimester at 12 weeks, the MTP legal window up to 24 weeks, lactational amenorrhea around 6 months, family planning starting in 1951, and MTP legalization in 1971. The biggest takeaway is that reproductive health is built on both science and policy. If you can track the timeline, you can track the chapter.
Sexually transmitted infections are one of the most important reproductive health topics because they often stay hidden until the damage has already begun. Mild itching, discharge, slight pain, or swelling may look trivial at first, but the real danger is that many infected females remain asymptomatic for long periods. That is why this becomes a silent epidemic. The 15 to 24 age group is especially important to remember because this bracket is repeatedly emphasized in exam-oriented material. A clean way to remember STIs is to separate them into incurable and completely curable groups. The three H's are the key lifelong infections here: HIV, hepatitis B, and genital herpes. On the other side, if detected early, infections like gonorrhea, syphilis, chlamydiasis, genital warts, and trichomoniasis can be treated completely. The practical exam trick is to remember the exact list rather than just the category, because these questions are usually framed as close distractors. An untreated or ignored STI can quietly move from a mild local infection into a much more serious reproductive disorder. The slide builds that progression clearly. An asymptomatic infection can lead to PID, and from there, the complications cascade into abortions, stillbirths, ectopic pregnancies, infertility, and even cancer of the reproductive tract. The biggest lesson is that early detection is not just about comfort. It is about preventing irreversible future damage. That is why a small symptom today can become a major reproductive problem tomorrow. Infertility has a very specific definition in reproductive health: the inability to produce children despite 2 years of unprotected sexual cohabitation. That 2 years detail is an important exam marker, so it should be remembered exactly. The causes are broad and can be physical, congenital, disease-related, drug-related, immunological, or psychological. One important social point here is that people often blame the woman first, but medically, the problem may lie in the male partner just as often, or even more often.
IVF, or in vitro fertilization, is the classic test tube baby technique, and the logic is straightforward once you follow the sequence. Ova and sperm are collected, fertilization happens outside the body under laboratory conditions, and then the embryo is transferred into the female. The term in vitro literally means outside the body, and that idea is the core of the entire method. Once that distinction is fixed, IVF is easy to separate from the other assisted reproductive technologies.
The 8-cell cutoff is one of the most useful distinctions in assisted reproduction. ZIFT, or zygote intrafallopian transfer, is used when the zygote or early embryo has up to 8 blastomeres and it is transferred to the fallopian tube. IUT, or intrauterine transfer, is used when the embryo has more than 8 blastomeres and then it is transferred to the uterus. A simple memory trick works well here. Small cell number goes to the fallopian tube, larger cell cluster goes to the uterus. GIFT and AI/IUI are both in vivo assistance methods, which means the fertilization process happens inside the body. In GIFT, an ovum is transferred into the fallopian tube of a woman who cannot produce one, but can still provide the environment for fertilization. In artificial insemination, or IUI, semen is artificially introduced into the vagina or uterus, usually when the male partner has difficulty inseminating or when sperm count is very low. The real contrast to remember is simple. IVF is outside the body, while GIFT and AI happen inside the body. ICSI is the most precise of these techniques because a single sperm is directly injected into the ovum. That makes it useful when fertilization needs a highly controlled laboratory procedure. The synthesis matrix on the slide ties the major ART methods together beautifully. IVF means fusion outside. ZIFT means outside fusion with transfer to the fallopian tube. IUT means outside fusion with transfer to the uterus. GIFT means ovum donation with inside fusion, and ICSI means direct injection into the lab embryo. One final point often overlooked is that legal adoption remains one of the best routes to parenthood as well.
This final question is designed to test whether the comparison tables actually stuck. Among the choices given, the completely curable infection, if detected early, is syphilis. That answer comes straight from the earlier classification, so the whole point is to use recall rather than guesswork. If you can separate the incurable 3Hs from the curable bacterial and protozoal STIs, and then distinguish IVF, ZIFT, IUT, GIFT, and ECC clearly, this whole unit becomes very manageable. That is the level of command that gets you through the exam with confidence.